I think this is all about his kid, not his girlfriend. The girlfriend's a nice joke, but it's nothing to do with that.
He can find a new one on campus. Though.
Why? I mean, this guy is pulling. Uh, I mean, that girl's super cute. He's 100.
There's no planet that exists anywhere but this one.
It's amazing. Hello and welcome to the Fat Jack Sports Hour. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm your host, the Fat Jack. The weekend is here. What a great weekend. It's bowl season. We're turning to 2025 coming up. So many things. Holiday season, New Year's, everything. They're debating whether to fall back or not, daylight savings. So a lot of different things to talk about as we wrap up a great year and get ready for 2025 and get everybody out there listening, hopefully ready to make some money as we head into the new year. Let me bring on my co-host from Louisville, Kentucky, Mr. Brandon Rush. Brandon, how are you, buddy?
I had to find my shoes because we're going bowling.
It's time, right? I mean, we've got a bunch of games that people are opting out of. Nobody cares about. The swag has gone down. Everybody's transferred to other schools. I mean, there's no question at this point that the state of college football needs some tweaking.
Sure.
I mean, it's like having a car with no gas and no oil right now. You still have a car. It can look pretty in the parking lot. And the playoff, I mean, that's like you wrapped it with something really cool and fun. Probably gunmetal or something. But as far as the bowls go, we've got some problems with college football, and we'll talk about that. We'll get you some free winners and much more. You're right. But it's bowl season. We get this once a year. And what are your thoughts on the bowls, Brandon? We've talked about this a little bit over the last. First of all, let me give out the website. Let me give out the number. Get people signed up. If you're betting on sports, guys, now is the time. Guys getting all the plays right now, having a great – we're building profit each and every week. All right? There have been weeks where football has not made money. We never fall off a cliff, but it'd be like one game. You know, we had a week a couple weeks ago or last week, whatever, where we had 15 turnovers in our first 3 games on Sunday. That's a record. It's actually 16 turnovers. I've never had 16 turnovers in 3 games to start a Sunday.
In a week, let alone on 3 games on a Sunday.
Those are, you can't control them. You can't, it happen. Turnovers happen. But at that rate, I've literally never had that. So that happens that particular week. It's going to be hard to make money. We went 3-3 on Sunday. It wasn't like we fell off the cliff. Again, the other 3 games that I released all won easily. So it's not like we fell off the cliff, but we're going to have weeks or days throughout the course of the football season where very few, but we're going to have them where we don't make money because most of the time it's not really bad picks or consistent bad picks. It's mainly good picks that literally average 4 or 5 turnovers per game. And when you do that in the NFL, you lose. That's it. You can't win turning the ball over 5 times. Although we did, of the other games, we had 2 more games that day that we lost the turnover battle, still won the game. So that's why we don't fall off a cliff in football, because even when we lose turnovers, we typically win. The point is that even when we have those few weeks, and I think we lost a game and a half or so that particular week, basketball made 5 games or 6 games. Generally speaking, the soccer has made money. We were on a 15-2 run a couple weeks ago in soccer and made a ton of money in soccer. The player props had a 16-8 a few weeks ago. Those type games, and they're averaging about, player prop profit is averaging about 8 to 10 games per month. That adds up 40 or 50 games of profit in the player prop. So if you're getting all the plays, you're making money. Now is the time to get that. Go to fatjacksports.com. We have the 2025-2026 preseason rates. If you're a client or have been a client, you want these rates. These are the rates. You get to pay out the service fee up to over 8 to 10 months. You get the lowest rate of the entire year. If you've never been a client, get in the system now. Get everything through at least New Year's Eve or through the Super Bowl. That will get you access to these lower rates that are only offered this time of year. Will save you a ton of money, allow you to pay out the service fee, and more importantly, you're going to get all the plays. That is the key. Get all the plays, you're going to win. Go to fatjacksports.com, sign up today, and win this weekend. All right, we got that out of the way. Bowl season, Brad. What do you think about the bowls overall? You're for, you're against. Where are you?
I mean, it's always been a nice reward for teams at the end of the year, where whether you win 8-4 or you win 11-1, hey, you have something to celebrate at the end of the year. With the playoff being expanded now, and really the only thing that matters, the Bulls have lost a little bit of luster, I'm sure, for the sports going fan. You know, just the casual sports fan probably doesn't care because these games, quote unquote, don't mean anything. For the fans of those teams and for those players of those teams, I'm sure they're very excited for them. And that said, I mean, I hope everyone has fun. and no one gets injured, and everyone gets to go into the offseason with something to pound their chest about.
Yeah, I look at it a little bit differently. A lot of what you said is true. The bowl games don't matter. I would tell you they've rarely mattered.
They say they never have, yeah.
The only time the bowls have mattered is when we didn't have a playoff. And if it was 4 teams, then I don't care if you won I don't care if you won the Orange Bowl if the Orange Bowl wasn't in the playoff. Or I don't care if you won the Cotton Bowl, which is a pretty prestigious bowl, if you weren't in the play. Who won the Cotton Bowl 3 years ago, Brandon? Can you tell me?
No clue.
I couldn't tell you who probably won the.
I know who won. I know who won 2 years ago, but that
I couldn't tell you what I had for dinner last night, so I don't know that I'm a good judge of that. But I would say the average fan doesn't care who won any
unless
of the
their
bowls.
team was
Yeah,
the one that did it. Yeah.
exactly. Over the last whatever, and so unless you won the national championship, I guess playing in at TCU will probably hang their hat on that. Playing in
Sure.
the playoff a couple years ago, but if you're any college football team or a fan thereof, you don't care other than having the opportunity to go to a game, having the opportunity to get in the sun a lot of times, cheer on your team one more time, understand you had a winning record. That's all great. That's what a bowl game is, I would tell you, not only for the fans, but for the players. They want to win. They want to play if they're playing. But it's a reward for the season. That's what bowl games started out to be, and that's really what they are to me. That's what they've always been. So I don't really care that nobody cares. They care even less than they did before about the bowl games. I do care about, and that was in the intro, is about the players opting out and not playing. And so now we're getting second, third, and fourth team quarterbacks. I mean, that's the thing. Brandon, are you aware that of these bowl games, these teams I'm getting ready to read you are all going to have either backup quarterbacks, and this is just as of today. This is not
Right.
Johnny went out and took his PlayStation, went over to a buddy's, found some lady friends, and didn't make curfew, and he doesn't get to play. This doesn't have anything to do with Johnny. This is just people we know are not going to play in these bowl games. Backup quarterbacks: Louisville, Coastal Carolina, James Madison, Tulane, Duke, Cal, Washington, North Texas, Liberty, Fresno, Northern Illinois, Oklahoma, Georgia, maybe Pittsburgh, Iowa, Louisiana, Wazoo, and Louisiana Tech.
That is 18 of 40 bowl games.
So almost half of the teams are not going to have their starting quarterback, which everybody can agree is the most important position on the offense for sure, and most teams the most important position. So I talk about from a fan perspective, from a player perspective, players who are going to the game. That doesn't even talk about let's just look at Oklahoma. I mean, you lose the middle linebacker, you lose not only the quarterback, you lose the top receiver, you lose the center. Nobody's playing. And I would argue that Oklahoma and Brent Venables in general, I'm just pulling them out. You could add this to any blue blood program around the country, doesn't give a rip about a bowl game.
Mm-mm.
They are right now, and this is different from what it was the last 5-10 years. They are right now not game planning for whatever bowl game their team is going to go to and be rewarded. 100% they are in the portal trying to figure out how to win next year so they don't lose their jobs.
And using these 15, 20 practices to help, in a case like Oklahoma, new offensive coordinator coming in, maybe start building towards next year. They don't care. I mean, obviously there's a small percentage of them, pride wise, that cares. Yeah, we want to go out and not get embarrassed on national television. The other 97, 95% though is focused on, that exactly, in the portal, and then making sure that we have guys in the system, understanding the system that we have going forward. We haven't game planned for Navy at all. We're already looking forward to 2025.
And they will. There will be some preparation for sure. And there will be, listen, I know, but I'm not here to say that they don't care. Obviously, everybody cares. Everybody wants to win. But it's, what do you care the most about? What are you trying to get done? As we're heading into the last part of December, first part of January. It's not even close. It's 95% effort toward portal, researching these players, who's in, who can I get to help me win next year. Nobody cares, basically including the fans. They want to win one game, but nobody's going to give Brent Venables at Oklahoma. And I would tell you this applies to literally half the teams in bowls. Not half, a third of the teams in bowls. Florida State's not in, but a lot of the good schools that are not playing for anything other than the pride of winning a game and getting some swag and having a good trip. No fan out there is going to give them any credit if they win, if they go beat Navy by 100, Oklahoma that is, or if they lose. It's better to win than to lose, but you're not going to take this away and you're going to hang it as a a banner and say, well, you know what, he did beat Navy, but nobody cares. So
and no coach's job is on the hot seat based on a bowl result.
Right. So I just say put in perspective. That's from a fan and player perspective. But I care the same amount I did before, having nothing to do with gambling because I didn't think they mattered before. As it relates to gambling, I care even more because I believe there's opportunities to make a lot of money when I am able to put in more work than everybody else can, that I'm able to get information that nobody else is getting, that I'm able to factor in things that nobody else, even if they knew how to factor in, would have the time.
Mm.
Nobody knows how good the backup quarterback, and I keep going back to Oklahoma because we do know a little bit more about, but nobody knows how good the backup quarterback, the backup center, and I'm not saying I did either 3 weeks ago, but what I will tell you is by the time we got to the bowls being played and these players being opted out, I'm able to put in the time to figure that out because I'm not just guessing, I'm betting. And so my clients are getting the plays of a person that is betting their money. And when they're betting their money, they want to do anything and everything possible. And that is my only job this time of year. All right. I did discover TikTok Shop. So I've been doing some TikTok shopping.
You've been avoiding the QR codes, I hope.
I've got a couple QR codes. Yeah, I'm not afraid to get the QR codes off the TV. But most of the time, I've been TikTok. But I'm not doing anything else. My family understands that right now, it's about finding winners, figuring out who's playing, who's not playing, and how to turn $50,000 into $150,000 or whatever. Or if you're out there betting, turn $300 into $1,000. That's what I'm doing. And then I pass those games along. Go to fatjacksports.com if you want to be one of those people that gets in on the right side of these games because that's all I'm doing right now. Christmas has never been a huge deal. My people understand this is, I take off for the day. I'll give some gift. This year they're getting some TikTok Shop stuff. But I'm not going shopping out a lot. I'm not putting up Christmas lights myself. If they're going on, somebody else is doing it because this is work. And this is what I'm doing to not only make myself but my clients money. So
absolutely. The clients and people like me want you in the lab working, not up on a ladder hanging up Christmas lights.
Yeah, you don't want me doing anything else. And that's why we talk about that with guys will email or call or whatever, and they'll want to have conversations more than a minute. Or how many emails, if you're one of my clients out there and you're going to be betting your money on these games, how much time do you want me personally spending with somebody else who has a question about why I released a game at 3 when they couldn't find at 3.5 and blah, 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 blah. You don't want me spending any time on that because you're out there and you're not taking up my time. You want my time being spent figuring out how the backup quarterback for all these teams are going to play so that we can make some money. So go to fatjacksports.com, get signed up today. Let's look at the playoffs real quick, Brandon. Specifically I'm interested in what you think about the rest versus rust with these teams. So we've got the first round matchups and blah, 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 blah. But Arizona State, Oregon, Boise, and Georgia all getting buys. Right, wrong, we talked about it last week. I think it's absolutely incorrect. They need to reseed these teams after they get them in. I'm absolutely okay with the way they got there. I don't want an all SEC tournament. If you hear anybody say on TikTok or Twitter or in a press conference, well, the best 12 teams didn't get in. Okay, Brandon, I don't know. We talk a little bit about how you feel, but that's not what this is ever going to be about, nor what it should be about.
It's not a beauty pageant. This is a tournament to determine champions, and champions of conferences should and are rewarded.
And what you guys out there will say, well, why don't you want the 12 best teams, Jack? Well, that's the same guy who says when I get 15 turnovers on Sunday morning is pissed off and says, I don't know how to handicap football. That is the most short-sighted way to look at anything that I've ever seen. If you're a college football fan, and namely a football fan of anybody other than the SEC and the Big Ten, you want these other conferences, especially the big conferences, but even the small, you want them to have an opportunity, not this year, but next year, the year after, to go recruit kids, get in living rooms, to spread out the talent base. I mean, it's not even close. So you may not know that you want it, but you do want long-term growth of college football is going to be based on teams other than Georgia, Alabama, Michigan, Ohio State. uh, being able to go into living rooms and get kids to go there. And one way you do that is to be able to say, if you go to Arizona State or you go in as a Boise coach or any of these teams and say, listen, we're going to be the best non-power 4 team. We're going to get in. If you want to play, you don't have to go figure out whether Michigan's going to win or not trying to beat Ohio State and Penn State. You come here, we'll build a program, we'll get you in the same playoff, you get the same platform with the NFL scouts, and you're going to have the chance to win a national championship. You want that long term. So it's not about getting the best 12 teams. It shouldn't be, and it's not. But once they get these teams in, I don't know how we can't at least agree on the fact that we want the best matchups, the best opportunities for the better teams that have earned it to that point, similar to what they do in basketball, to have the easiest route there. We do not have that this year. This is a learning process with the committee, a learning process with NCAA football. Totally different issue that they don't know what the heck they're doing at the NCAA. But we could definitely agree. But let's look at the 4 teams, and what do you think? Are they benefiting from this, Brandon? Are they not? I mean, where we're at?
I mean, sure, they get the benefit of not having to have played in the opening rounds. These from a layoff standpoint, though, it's really not that much different because most of the teams that are, or I should say, all the teams that have buys played in conference championship games, whereas a lot of the other teams who are in the playoff didn't. So there isn't as big of a gap. It's obviously going to be good to have the bye, to have one less game of attrition, to have one less opportunity for your star quarterback, for your best linebacker to get hurt, and then potentially hamper you going into a bowl game, going into a playoff game. Plus, that's one less opportunity that your opponent has to see something on film. So, I mean, there is a benefit to the bye, but I don't think it's as much of a bye. Now, if it was a situation where, say, a team like Notre Dame, who didn't play in a conference championship game, ended up getting a bye, then that I think would be more beneficial to a team that had played, because to play 5 weeks or go 5 weeks without playing a bowl game or any game is a long time and can be very detrimental.
Well, and I think what you're saying is what they did originally. They said, you're going to play the conference championship. If you win that, we're going to reward you with a bye.
Yes.
We're going to give you more time off. We understand you played later than everybody else. I understand that. I just don't believe you can go forward. I don't think you should go forward with that because of exactly what's happening this week. Now, we will see how this rolls out, because teams like Clemson that did play in a championship, but aren't really hurt. They're not that banged up, and they're getting 10 days or whatever. It's not like they're playing every once a week. Even when was the last? They're going to be at 2 full weeks before this first round game. Then there's 10 days between the first round and the second round.
Second round, right?
So you're getting 10 days, which is not. That gets rid of a lot of the, for those of you who play football, but that gets rid of a lot of the aches and pains and bruises. So if you
that extra 3 days is huge,
it really
especially
is
at this level.
It won't get you. It won't get you your high ankle sprain. That won't cure that.
Your tweaked MCL, probably not. But just the overall bangs and bruises and just being able to clear your mind of that is absolutely huge.
You're going to feel better. But I definitely think once we get to this level, there's going to be some teams that if they back their way in, even if they won a conference championship, that they're going to be asked to play earlier if I'm getting my way, which of course I'm not. But I believe that rest is really, really important this time of year. I also think the ability to watch your team, sit back, take a deep breath, and then watch these teams in the first round play, figure out where they end up if they have an opportunity to get hurt as well. And that's my bigger deal. One more game is one more game. We talked about this going into the tournament, that playing these games was going to be more. You're going to play more games than you're normally playing, and that does matter. So this extra game that teams like Clemson, I think they're really hampered. Those type that SMU, those type that have played a lot of football this year, that one extra game does matter. Any of these quarterfinal teams, who's most likely to get upset, Brandon? And by the way, I just want to say, you're getting a more general picture of this tournament. We're not talking specifically about the first round for a reason. This show will run a couple of weeks, and I don't want to be out of date about the first week, but I do want to also give information that will help people with some teams that are going to be playing coming up this weekend. So which of these 4 most likely to get upset based on what we're looking at?
I mean, upset in terms of ranking is going to be Boise State. Coming in, I mean, they have probably the one of the tougher matchups, at least in my estimation, because I mean, if Arizona State loses as a 4 seed, sure, in terms of seed, it's it's an upset, but they are going to be decided underdogs to whoever they play.
So when we look at these teams, you're right. The Arizona State, probably most likely they're getting a really good team coming out of that. Most likely to lose, but based on seeding, that's not as big a deal. But we're able to look at some of these look-ahead lines, Brandon. So what does it look like? How many of the teams that got buys will be underdogs regardless of who wins their first matchup?
Both Boise and Arizona State are going to be underdogs. Boise would be an 11-point underdog to Penn State and a 7-point underdog to SMU. Arizona State 2 touchdowns to Texas and only 4.5 to Clemson.
See, this is the biggest problem, Brandon. We're going to have either SMU, for Penn State, or Boise making the semifinals.
Mm-hmm.
And there's
one of the Final Four teams is going to be those schools.
When we're only going to have one of Tennessee, Ohio State, or Oregon making the semifinals. That in a nutshell is my problem. I'm for the underdogs getting there, but when you line up these things where you're going to get one team that 100% is going to be an underdog once they get to the semifinals, there's none of those teams out of the SMU, Penn State, Boise that's not going to be an underdog once they get to the semis. I would prefer, and I understand that I'm looking more blue bloods here, but I would prefer Tennessee, Ohio State, Oregon, all 2 of those 3 to have the opportunity to make the semis, or even, Georgia, Notre Dame. One of those, 2 of those teams in the semis doesn't upset me. We don't know exactly how good Notre Dame is or isn't. I mean, they lost. What's Notre Dame doesn't have a great win, but they didn't play in a conference championship. If we're going to include Notre Dame where they have always been, which it looks like we are, then I would like, if they are the best team, to not have to run through defending national, runner-up type, or finalist in Georgia. So I just think that spreading those out a little bit afterwards would be a good idea. Go to fatjacksports.com if you want to make money on these games. We get back from the break, we're going to talk a lot about the bowl games coming up in particular, get you some free winners, 2 or 3 free winners coming up after the break. We'll also look at the NFL schedule coming up over the next couple weeks, just a tiny bit, because this is the bowl preview show that's going to get you ready for all these bowl games, get you into profit, and primarily get you signed up for the new year. That's going to have you winning all year long when you go to fatjacksports.com.
Hey guys, this is the Fat Jack. Are you finally ready to get a better plan betting the games this year? Let me help. Go to fatjacksports.com, where we understand that it's not the gambling she hates, it's the losing. fatjacksports.com.
If you want to stay in touch with everything related to the Fat Jack, follow us on all the socials: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, you name it, we are there at Fat Jack Sports. You can also watch the Fat Jack Sports Hour on YouTube every week. Get free winners and tips on how to become a better sports bettor. Plus, see Jack's appearances on the nationally syndicated TV show Beat the Odds. Stay connected with the Fat Jack Sports Service at Fat Jack Sports on all the socials and on YouTube. Welcome back to the Fat Jack Sports Hour, and now here is our host, a man who probably could bowl a perfect game. He is the Fat Jack.
Thank you, Brandon, so much. Fat Jack Sports Hour, segment number 2. I'll tell you what's funny about bowling, Brandon. I've told you this before. Thank you guys for joining us out there. I have actually bowled a perfect game before.
See, I thought you had, but I couldn't remember.
Back in college, just out of college, I was searching, I think, for competition more than anything else after I quit playing football and stuff. And I got to where I actually went to a PBA qualifying tournament back in, it was like, I don't know, 1999, 2000, somewhere in there. And it didn't go great. But I was carrying about a 230 average, 228, 227 average. And I was bowling in 3 leagues plus casino bowling in Oklahoma, which the oil's easier on those. So we won't spend a lot of time on bowling. It's a bowl show. But the oil's easier. Bowlers still tell you oil patterns have everything to do with whether you're good at bowling or not.
Yep.
And so people who know anything about bowling know that when you go to a public lane, or you bowl in just an average league, you're going to get oil patterns that are easy for the average bowler to be good. So the oil is heavier at the start. At the end, it goes really light. That way your ball will break more to get into the pocket. Well, when you go to these qualifying tournaments of PBA, and this people don't realize, they have really difficult oil lanes, and I was not up to that learning curve. I was one of those really good. I was like a really good golfer that could play a really bad golf course, but if you put me on Pebble Beach, I'd shoot 92 type deal.
Sure. Right.
That's kind of what it was. I was a really good bowler if you were just out there jacking around on public lanes with easy oil patterns. Put me on a difficult oil pattern, not so much. So, but yeah, bowling was one of my passions at one time, like a lot of things. So by now, my passion is getting people money in the world of the bowls. Excuse me. So we're going to figure out how to do that in this segment alone. So go to fatjacksports.com, get signed up. You get the bowl analysis, get the bowl sheet and the bowl package through through the national championship game. And with that, you get the bowl analysis sheet, which is a predicted final score on every single bowl game. So it'll kind of give you, and we started off that bowl analysis sheet really, really hot, really good. So we're hitting dialed in, making money, and guys that like to play more than just the top plays with those bowl games, they like those extra plays that they get with that bowl analysis sheet because it gets you a predicted final score. Now, obviously, that'll change as we have opt-outs, coaches moving on, injuries, all sorts of things happen. The games that we release, as far as selections and opinions go, those will be a little bit different, possibly, than what went out the bowl analysis sheet, which was put together on December 14th or so, 13th, whatever it was. So keep that in mind. But it's free. You don't pay for it. So when you sign up, at least through the national championship game in college football or the Super Bowl or March Madness or the NBA Finals, you get that bowl analysis sheet for free. Use it for whatever you want. Go to fatjacksports.com, get signed up. Brandon, of the bowl games coming up, we talked a little bit already about Navy and Oklahoma and my thoughts there. Navy over Army was one of our – I gave that out as an extra play. And so them winning did not surprise you. USC, Texas A&M, obviously a big one coming up. Iowa State, Miami. I mean, we're talking about backups playing, but teams that care at least a little bit, I think you're going to get a pretty good effort out of both of those teams. What jumps out at you on some of these later bowl games?
Georgia Tech, Vandy, both teams obviously have had marquee wins this year, and they're going to kind of be the sort of the people's champion type of bowl game because anybody who is a fan of a blue blood can look at those two schools and be like, yeah, they got us, you know? So that'll be a fun game to watch. That is the Friday after Christmas. Iowa State, Miami is going to be awesome just because you got a team that has a lot to prove with a Heisman finalist still, even though they were a very flawed team. And Iowa State's always a plucky, tough team. For me, though, the two bowl games that are not in the playoff, BYU, Colorado in the Alamo Dome, which is always a track meet, and then Alabama, Michigan. I want to find out where those two programs stand after less than stellar seasons.
Yeah, and who cares there? I mean, you're going to have a bunch of opt-outs there, but you're going to have to play. They both have new coaches with a new approach to these games. I think one of the things you get into when you have a coach like Nick Saban or like Harbaugh, guys that have been there a long time, the expectations are set not just 1 year, but every year. And so when you go through a year and you have those type coaches and you underachieve, it's hard for them to then pivot and say, well, now we need to care about beating Michigan. We always want to care about or be. It's hard because they every year say, listen, you come to Michigan and play for national championships. You win the Big Ten, you play for national championships. That's it. You come to Alabama, you win SEC championships, you play for national championships, you go to the league. That's what they sell. It's hard to then pivot and say, well, we want you to now care. With these new coaches, there's a new opportunity to say, what are we going to get from this? And just sometimes saying things a different way will help. Alabama, big favorite over Michigan. So at least the line setters believe from a 9.5 point total 43 on the game. So they feel like at least defensively, these two teams are going to show up. Alabama's totals have been higher than that over the latter part of the season because they were scoring some points. Their defense have been inconsistent. That's why they're playing in this type of spot. Michigan hasn't been able to score against just about anybody, still looking for an offensive identity with the new coaching staff. And so what do you get out of those guys opting out? That's going to be a lot to say. I would say there will be defense shows up, defense travels most of the time these bowl games, and there will be points will be a premium in this type of spot. A game where I don't think points will be a premium, and you touched on it, is the Iowa State-Miami game. These are two teams that quietly, Brandon, and you're not going to have as many opt-out. I read the list of backup quarterbacks. You didn't hear me read Iowa State. You're going to get what you get out of Iowa State is a better than average and an offensive team that has outperformed what I think most people thought they would be this year, and a team that is susceptible to mistakes and big turnovers at the wrong time. You'll see those in these bowl games. And so I think that game flies over the total. That will be a release. So if you're looking for a free winner, Iowa State, Miami over. Miami's defense has not been good, especially in the secondary. I think Ohio State scores a bunch of points. Because of that, Miami has to open it up. They're not able to just run the ball and try to run play action off of that. Total's 55 and a half. I think that game flies over. So your first free winner of the bowl season, Iowa State, Miami over. Another game, I think that you mentioned it also, is a really intriguing game to me, is BYU and Colorado. This is a game, we've heard Deion Sanders say, kids are going to play. My son's going to play. Heisman Trophy winner's going to play. Brandon, I'm not buying that. Am I wrong to think that Deion Sanders might tell me one thing and do another? I'm not saying they're not going to start. He would have to do an about face. And by the way, I understand he has a ton of influence over
the
Heisman Trophy winner, but this kid's going to be the number one under no other circumstances. And I understand that Deion's run things differently up there. He's got a different program, different mindset. He's in charge. He's the boss. I get it. But there's not another team that had those players with what they have to lose going into the draft coming up that would have their kids playing in the Alamo Bowl.
Yeah. Now, if it was obviously a playoff game, sure, you would expect them to be there. But yeah, a quote unquote meaningless game, like they're gonna go on the trip. They're gonna get the swag. Until we bring back winners get more stuff than losers in bowl games. There's no incentive for these guys to be playing. I appreciate Deion saying the right things, and it would not shock me if, say, Travis Hunter went out, played 4 series, 2 on either side of the ball, and was like, you know what, I'm out.
That's what I think is going to happen. I don't. Maybe Deion just.
That's what I hope happens. That's what I hope happens. Especially if I'm an NFL GM, I'm like, hey, can we not maybe ruin our future franchise guys by playing in a meaningless game?
If any of these kids get hurt, I'm going to be sick to my stomach, Brandon.
Absolutely.
And so I just don't believe that that's going to happen. I think Deion understands the responsibility to the kid. I know he does. That's why they would consider playing. I promise you they went to him, not only his kids, but Hunter also went to him and said, hey, what about the bowl game? What are we going to do about the bowl game? And he said, you're playing. I want you to play. But I think there's going to be an asterisk. And if there wasn't when he initially said they're going to play, I think there will be when it gets closer. I don't know. I don't believe that Deion Sanders is going to put Travis Hunter out there for 4 quarters in a bowl game that means nothing and risk what might happen if the worst case scenario happened. I hope he doesn't.
Over under how many plays does Travis Hunter play?
I think Travis Hunter is going to play 14 plays.
See, I was thinking low 20s. So yeah.
I understand that that's going to upset people too, but it's not going to upset people as much as if something horrible happens to this kid. He's not overly sized. I get why you want to play. I understand, but I just think there's some times in your life when you have to choose you. And you have to not choose. And I'm not saying that Oklahoma's quarterback should not be playing or that East Carolina should be trained. I'm not saying, but I think there are times when you come from where you come from and you have a generational obligation to your family and your parents and your kids and that you have to choose you. And I think the Alamo Bowl might be that time.
And to be honest with you, I don't know of – granted, I know – fans are idiotic about a lot of things, but I don't think anybody who is a Colorado Buffaloes fan would fault Travis Hunter for saying, hey, thanks, but no thanks.
And Deion Sanders for protecting his kid, even if it's against himself. I also get the competitive thing, and everybody wants to be competitive and 4 quarters and next man. All that stuff is great. I also understand what's at stake here, and that's why my free winner, number 2, is BYU. Plus the points.
That's a roundabout way to get in there, but we got there.
To get to BYU, because here's what's going on to BYU, Brandon. Nobody's transferring anywhere for the most part. We are now patenting the BYJew as our slogan. We're leaning into it. The Mormons and the Jews are getting together and they're patenting things. They're going to make money going forward with that. Most of the players on this team have already gone on their mission trip. They're back. They got 3 kids. They're just glad not to be babysitting.
They've already transferred. They transferred from like a real life to college. Yeah.
They're so glad to be in San Antonio on the Riverwalk. They've got 3 kids at home and a wife. And she'd like him to watch because it's his time to watch. Football's supposed to be. No, not this weekend. This weekend, I got to go play football, honey, in San Antonio. And you and the 9 kids got to stay behind. That's what's going on at BYU. And so they're glad to be there. They're going to go out and feel an opportunity to beat the Heisman Trophy winner, to beat Deion Sanders, all those things. So I think there's motivation does matter most more than anything else in these games. And I think you're getting a team with BYU that they do care for different reasons, and Colorado, if they do care, shouldn't care. So BYU plus the points, your second free winner. The other thing to look at before we head into the NFL a little bit and some other, you're looking for consistency, Brandon. We had the whole thing. Marshall is out. Marshall decided they've had enough. They lose their coach, or they fire the coach. He's gone. They get a new coach in. Quarterback was going to be gone. Linebacker going to be gone. So they just decide, you know what, enough's enough. Everybody's in the portal. Nobody's staying in Marshall. Marshall's in West Virginia, right?
Yes.
Nobody wants to stay in Marshall, West Virginia anyway. So they are out. They're not playing. Louisiana Tech is now in. They went 5-7. They're playing an Army team that comes off an Army-Navy loss. So you don't know somebody else that doesn't know or care what the portal is.
I did see one player from Army transferring and or at least put himself in the portal. And I kind of wondered like the logistics of that, because there's always issues with Army and Navy guys going to the NFL. Like, how are they getting out of that commitment?
I was going to say, that is a dishonorable discharge. How's that work?
Right. That's a whole other can of worms that I don't know that anyone was even prepared to answer.
Yeah, a graduate. He had most likely had to be a graduate. Maybe. I don't know. It'll be interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting to watch. The fact that it's news that one person entered the portal is really my point. That when you go to Army, you go to Navy, you go to Air Force, you don't transfer. You sign contracts. They pay you money every month to go to school. So you not only get your room and boards and books and all that, and I know this from my son who was recruited by those teams, that you get, I think it's like $2,000 a month, $1,500 a month, something like that. It's a lot of money. That you get to go to school there. Now, for that, you're getting up at 4 a.m., you're defending your country, and afterwards there's an assumption, you have a commitment that you're going to live out after you go to college. But teams don't transfer from Army. When you get into bowl games, those things matter. Also, Russ versus rest, we talk about that. Army runs the option. You know who they can run the option in their sleep.
Yep.
The option doesn't have a lot to do with what the defense is going to try to do. The option has to do with where they're going to be at when the ball is in front of you. You determine what you're going to do with the ball. That's why it's called option football. So Army, the rest versus Russ, Army's going to show up ready to go. They're going to have their entire team. They're going to be pissed off because they lost to Navy. Mm-hmm. This is not beating Louisiana Tech by 1,000 is not going to make up for that. But I tell you what is going to happen is Louisiana Tech gets down 21. It's death by 1,000 cuts when you play Army.
And when it's Army, those are meat cleavers, because when you're defending the option, and you know this having played against the option many times, that thing as an interior lineman is brutal.
You're going to either have an incredible day, which I taught my son to have an incredible day after having, you're right, back in the 80s, there were lots of options teams. We played against them, and I got good at it. And when you start back then, there were more teams running the option. I got good at how to defend it, and I knew how to make it. And so my son played nose guard in college. He had over 20 tackles a game as a nose guard 3 times in his career. Every one of them were against a team that ran the option. And that's because in Oklahoma, they played Davis, and they
Sulphur. Yep.
And so we literally are breaking down tape when he's in high school at the house. All right, here's what's going to happen. Here's where you go. This is your. And so by the time he got to college, he was reading the option up at Chicago in his sleep, because he'd grown up knowing how to defend the option. He knew exactly where the players were going to be. The point is, Louisiana Tech players are not that.
Nope.
They're not going to know what's going on. And if you don't defend it really, really well, you can still make 20 tackles, but they're going to be 3 yards down the field, 5 yards down, 2 yards first down, 2 yards, 3 yards first down. And so you've got to make tackles for loss. That's not something Louisiana Tech does anyway. Lay the 16.5. And that we didn't talk about Army's defense. That is really, really good. One of the top defenses in the country. Louisiana Tech going to have a lot of trouble with their 5 wins this year moving the football. Play Army minus the points. And by the way, yes, I said 5 because we're out of teams with 6 wins that are eligible for bowls that won half their games. That's why Louisiana Tech's in. Marshall's out. They had won 6 games. They had to go to the next team. Louisiana Tech's in. They went 5-7 this year. They're getting 16.5 from Army. That is not enough. Lay the points. play the Black Knights or whatever they're called, and Army minus the points. That is another bowl free winner. FatJackSports.com. You ready to make money in 2025? Don't have time to do the work on the bowls and who's out and who's in? Want to make money in the playoffs? We have not lost in January in over a decade. January has been a winning month for 10 straight years and a huge month for the last 7 years. There's so many ways to bet on sports. I'm going to be throwing in some players' props to guys who aren't on the player prop package as we get closer to the playoffs. Soccer's having an incredible winter. Get signed up for that. Add these plays. Get the season package now. You got to sign up short term because you can't get into these if you have never been a client. So get the week. If you've never been a client before, get the week, and then email us about these non-published rates that we're giving out to all return clients that we only give between now and the end of the year. So January 1st, these are gone. But right now, you can pay out the service fee over 8 to 10 months. You get the lowest rate of the entire year. It allows guys to get into profit quicker, to not have it ding on their bank or their bank accounts because they're paying it out slowly. You get in the system the minute you get the season package, so you don't have to wait till it's paid off. This is not Target. There's no layaway here. You sign up today, you get the picks today. I want you to start building profit today. So get signed up today, FatJackSports.com, and start making money.
Hey guys, this is the Fat Jack. Are you finally ready to get a better plan betting the games this year? Let me help. Go to FatJackSports.com, where we understand that it's not the gambling she hates, it's the losing. FatJackSports.com.
Welcome back to the Fat Jack Sports Hour, and for the final time this week, here is our host, the man not opting out of bowl season. He is the Fat Jack.
Thank you so much, Brandon. Fat Jack Sports Hour, segment number 3, getting you wrapped up in this bowl preview edition of the show. Before we do, you were talking off the air about FanDuel has Belichick's North Carolina's first-year win total up.
Yeah.
Quickly, how do you think he's going to do there in year one and beyond? It's such a different world now with the portal. Do the kids, will that resonate? Will they want to go play with him there? What do you think about that?
I think by establishing it as being a pipeline to the NFL, I think is going to maybe attract some kids that it maybe didn't before, because I'm sure North Carolina, was the 7th choice maybe for football players in the ACC. But with Belichick there, with the connections, the coaches he's bringing in, I'm sure it'll be fine. I think though it's going to be very much like how Kentucky was in basketball for a long time, where they knew that Calipari was going to get them to the league. Wins be damned. If they made the Sweet 16, hey, they're still making the NBA. They don't care. So I don't know if the wins are going to be there initially. Looking ahead at their schedule, they have a fairly easy schedule in terms of at least the name brands, and we don't know who's going to be good year to year now with the way college football is. But TCU, UCF, Charlotte, and Richmond in the first 4, and then the conference slate is one of the easier ones you could possibly get in the ACC. Cal, NC State, Clemson, Duke, Stanford, Virginia, Wake Forest. So they avoid Louisville, they avoid Miami, they avoid some pretty big names in the ACC. 7.5. is the total. Lay to go under.
I don't know that he can get to 8 wins. Here's what I think is going to be interesting. I do think that people want to play for him. I think this is all about his kid, not his girlfriend. The girlfriend's a nice joke, but it's nothing to do with that.
He can find a new one on campus.
Why? This guy is pulling. That girl's super cute, and he's 100.
There's no planet that exists anywhere but this one.
It's amazing. But I do think that his son, who is going with him, I think he was not a kid guy who's getting a lot of options in the NFL, and that might be a year and take over for me. But I do think people will play for him, and I do think we're getting a kinder, softer, gentler version of him.
Sure.
Which I think is nice. We saw that on ESPN, on the show he's been on with ESPN. A softer version of him is a nice version.
Yeah.
He spends a lot of time down where we have our boat in Florida, in Jupiter, lives down there, and people like him. It's not just Bill Belichick and this grumpy old man, people actually like him, say he's a nice guy. He goes to some of the restaurants down there and stuff. So I think we're going to get that version, which will help him, will certainly help with recruiting. So I think he'll be moderately successful. The good news about it is in college football, if you can assess talent and you can get them, we've seen that. Guys will come play with you for Deion Sanders. It wouldn't matter if he is on the moon, they're going to go play for him.
Yep.
Play for TCU for whatever reason. They got good. You can go from 0 to 100 pretty quick in college football with its current setup. So I'm excited to see it for sure. Quickly, let's touch on the NFL, Brandon. My Buffalo bet still looking good, right? Everybody got that?
Boy, yeah, they put a thumping on Detroit. Great stat about Detroit. They have now lost a game in which Jared Goff threw 5 touchdowns and won a game where he threw 5 picks. So you can't put a lot of stock in the Lions basket.
I don't want to sprang my arm, pat myself in the back, but the Buffalo Bills and the Detroit Lions have been exactly what I said they were going to be.
Exactly who you thought. Yep.
Detroit is somebody that they're going to make their coach is going to make decisions. It's going to get them beat, and they're going to lose games. And that was an example of that. They came back and lost 12 minutes ago. They're lining up. It's not like you can line up for an onside and not tell people. You have to tell them up front. So now where's the analytics in that? There's been like 3 recoveries all season in the NFL. Yeah. This guy's an idiot. I don't know. People don't want to say it, but he's an idiot.
Absolute meathead, but he's a fun meathead.
He is a great motivator of men.
Yep.
Because he is one of them, but he is an idiot. And and that works great when you have great players. You'll do a lot of damage, but you will not win a Super Bowl. You cannot be an idiot win the Super Bowl. And that was an example of exactly what he's going to do. That is so stupid. You have to tell him you're lining for an onside. He tells him and does. That's like a 3% or less. And all they had to do was play a little defense, and they get the ball back, which, oh, by the way, they did.
Yep.
And they almost win the game anyway.
Yes, they had another onside late in that game that they almost got, but yeah.
Chiefs, where are they? What do you think about Chiefs?
I mean, it's obviously going to depend on the health of Patrick Mahomes.
It always does this time of year, right? I mean,
right.
Every year we talk about his little injuries becoming big injuries.
And the script just says they find a way.
They found a way so far.
All I know is that AFC Championship game between Buffalo and Kansas City is going to be immaculate, and I'm ready for it.
I don't think that's going to happen. I'll say it right here first. We'll talk about this much more next week as we get into January. I know. I don't think Kansas City's making it. They're going to lose to somebody they're not supposed to. I do think Buffalo probably gets there, barring 5 turnovers or whatever we had a couple weeks ago in a game. But I do think I'd still like them. I normally would start hedging early in the playoffs. I don't know. We're going to look at their matchup. I'd stand to win about 60,000 with them if they win it all. And so we had the Clemson bet I gave everybody on the show, and I gave Buffalo everybody that bet on the show before the season in August. That pays to listen. Pays to listen, guys. How are we doing on time?
We need to get out of here.
All right, let's do it. We're going to get out of here. Guys, enjoy your bowl season. We have the holidays, of course. We have New Year's coming up. Please don't drink and drive. Wager responsibly, all right? Get signed up for the new year now. That is a responsible thing to do. If you're betting all year long, get signed up all year long. You pay the lowest price, pay it out over the most months. Go to fatjacksports.com. Get the plays on your personal portal, emailed to you, hassle-free, get you into profit quicker, and you're going to get all the plays, including baseball, for free coming up this April. For Brandon, the Fat Jack, guys, Happy New Year. We will talk to you very, very soon. We'll talk about one more show in December or no?
No.
No, that's it. All right, Happy New Year, guys. So enjoy your holiday season, and we will talk to you the first week of 2025. And we've got a lot to talk about with the college playoffs and much more. Thank you for joining us. You've been listening to the Fat Jack Sports Hour.